Hey everybody, this is Shredded Cat, and I'm making a real quick tutorial here to show some tricks to stop bleeding, because there's been some questions on it on the forums. First, there's two ways that I know of. One is not very precise, and it involves using the line tool. Let me put some bleeding texture on first. Ruby is like the worst thing that I know of. The easiest way I know of is to just use the line tool. And I just drew a straight line down to the floor. The more you do it, the more it's going to straighten it, but the more it's also going to potentially start distorting stuff. It does not work at lines, like at angles. So, at least I've never gotten it to. So I wouldn't even try. Well, I guess, oh look, there, now it's doing it. Kinda. Let me try to make one smaller. As you can see, it just like won't stay, right? So the other way that I know of is to use a zero volume voxel. They're fairly easy to make, the one that you need. Here's the steps, and I'm going to do them for you, but since I'm so bad at it, showing the perspective on stuff, it's really probably easier for everybody if I just do it kind of and show you, okay, now this is what happens when you do this. You stretch out one of these offset quarter voxels, and I show how to make that in another tutorial. And you do that the same way you would do making a mega voxel or whatever. You are going to put you're going to put the offset quarter voxel in the middle and then put it again around itself. And then I'm going to copy it. Oops. I'm going to copy all 5 of the voxels, mirror on the green axis so I can see the top of what I'm doing. And I'm going to copy paste the 4 voxels again on top. And you want it to be flat on one side. So I'm just going to take this, and the trick is to mirror it. You're going to paste it 3 times. You're going to paste it 3 spaces away, but you want to have it be mirrored so it sits flat together, if that makes sense. Because it's offset, like a normal voxel, if I pasted it 3 spaces away, even if it was stretched as far as it would go, there would be a gap, like that. Bad. We don't want that. But since this thing is offset, you can overlap it when you mirror it. So I'll place it back over itself. And then 1, 2, and there's a gap that way, so that won't work. So let me try doing it the other direction. 1, 2, and now there's no gap. So you just have to play around with it till you find the side that does what you like. And now I'm just going to copy this chunk here, and I'm going to paste it above or below itself. Doesn't matter what direction. One, two, mirror it, Alright, now if you did it properly, you have a 3 by 3 by 1 cube. One side's going to be offset, i.e. it sticks out further than the voxel box, so it's going to push things out. It's going to make things smaller that you touch. The other side's going to be flat. We want the flat side. And I'm going to get out a... Well, I'll make a voxel reactor real quick. This right here is the zero volume voxel. It's actually air that's compressed so small, an air voxel that's compressed so small that it has no volume, so we can't see it, but to the game, it's there. And that's all that matters. To make a voxel reactor, you're just going to take, well, let me use something that's not bleedy. You're going to take 4 voxel cubes, copy them, and you're going to paste them one space out from themselves. 1, 2. Or 2 spaces, sorry. And then so I can see what's happening inside of it. I'm going to paste it here, and I'll do another one probably later to show a different trick. But for now, I'm just going to do that so there's no distraction. Okay, so I'm copying out the center. Luckily enough, it pastes right where I want. Make sure you paste with air. You're not going to be able to see what you're pasting, so you might have to go into tweak mode with shift left click when you paste. Now you see the air that was inside those 4 corners was compressed, and so this is what it does. And the inside surface of that voxel, it's pulling everything inward. We don't want that. On the exterior, it's flat, because the outside of the voxel is flat, where they meet. That is what we want. So, I'll show you how to do it on the floor, because you have to rotate it, right? So first we're going to copy out the flat side. We're going to make a voxel that makes things flat on both sides, not pushed in. And to do that, we're going to mirror it on the blue axis. It's going to be one side of our new reactor. And then mirror it again to get the original direction. And now it's nice and flat. So when we paste it in something, it's going to be flat on the top and the bottom. It's going to pull everything in towards a point. It's going to make a tiny point. So we want to make sure we paste it directly on the surface, because the voxel surface below, once we pasted it, will be pulled up. The air above is going to be pulled down. We don't want either of those things, so we got to paste it directly in the middle. So let me paint some stuff on the floor. I'm going to put a marker next to the beginning and end of my color, because I've been doing this, tried a couple times to do this tutorial, and I always had trouble knowing what went where. So I'm just going to use a block of stucco to indicate top and the bottom edges of the ruby. Now I'm going to paste another color that's bleedy. I'm going to do a smaller amount because I need to show an angle. Doing this to indicate the lines of my sapphire. So I know the sapphire edge is here somewhere. Okay. So now, since it's on the ground, I have to rotate the direction of this. Because if I copy that center voxel in straight from there, it would pull down. Don't want that. I have my just woke up voice, sorry. See how it's flat? Okay, so I'm going to use the selection, push down shift to get my arrows. Copy out the center. And you got to use tweak mode, but after that, After you get used to playing with it, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to use tweak mode very much. But I'm going to do it so you can see where my guideline is. I'm moving that voxel around. I'm making a nice, perfectly crisp straight line. I'm going to try to make an angle here. And you basically just have to remember where you've been. That's kind of the hard part, considering you can't see where you've been. And sometimes you'll have to go back over it a couple times. And you'll have to correct it. It says, when you're doing voxels at an angle, there's always going to be space where the diagonals connect. And that's the hard part, is convincing the game to not put that space there. Let's try going in a little more. I'm not going to be able to get it to do it. Really, all you need is one clean angle. I'll come back to this in a second. You just need one clean angle. Once you have the one clean, solid voxel length angle, you can do this. So, it's okay if you're sitting here trying desperately for like 30 minutes and getting no results, but just one good side. Because that's all you need, is that one good side. I don't think it's going to let me make an angle here. I'm just going to push it in more and see if I can get one edge. That's all I need. One edge. Just give me an edge, game. I'm using the arrows every time. You will not need to once you start playing with these, because it's basically point, and I'll just show you. The arrows, you can ignore the arrows. It's going to go where you're pointing. I'll do it here on the ground. Even though that green arrow's over there, it's actually going where my cursor is. You just don't see anything, so it's hard to tell. And you'll get this a lot in game when you'll be pasting stuff. You'll get, oh, here we go, maybe it'll do it now. You'll get error on your cursor, and so the game will be like, there's nothing there, I can't paste anything, what are you trying to do to me? It really will paste error, so be really careful. If it looks like nothing's happening, something is happening, and you might have left dirty error somewhere, and you can end up with a nasty surprise down the line when you're trying to do something in that spot later. You can end up with deformations and not have any idea why. Okay, I'm just going to have to quit trying, make my straight line. Okay, there's an angle. Let me continue to show. I will come back to that. But I had to make a square, and then it angled itself for me after I made the complete square. So, but let me come back to that. Let me finish. Oops. That would have been bad. You don't want to be below the surface when you're pasting this. See, I'm always pasting directly on the surface. If you paste below the surface, I'll do it over here. It'll still do that, but if you paste too far below, it'll also distort the ground. Or maybe not. Maybe it never does it and I'm just imagining things. That's stupid. I mean, I love the marketplace button. Just wish I could remap it. Probably the most frustrating thing to me is accidentally pushing the marketplace button and then having to move my mouse from the position I finally got my thing into in order to close it. It's so frustrating. Can't wait till we get key bindings. I personally know of many people who have trouble using the mouse wheel, for instance, to move things around, but they can't remap it. They have to go and use an accessibility program or outside software in order to be able to use the game. This little thing's not going to want to go. So I'll come back and approach my angle again. Just make sure, since you can't see what you're doing, it's really tough. Sometimes you'll end up missing a tiny spot. Sometimes you just need to move on and bound the entire color before it's going to decide to allow you to constrain it. So just do the whole thing and then come back for touch-ups on the parts that won't go where you want later. Let's see, is that where my sapphire was? And once you get a certain color bound, you can copy and paste the part that you've bound up and repaint it. Okay, now I'm working my way backwards from the edge. And the spots I'm pretty sure. Oh, looks like someone's coming over to visit. As I was saying, once you get a certain effect bound, you can paint it whatever. So you just need to go back and copy the area that you like the angle of. You can repaint it and kind of use it to make your inlays that bleed from then on. Saves a little time. So there I've got a nice set of angles, and that's a good one right there. Problem is going to be getting this to go straight, not be bleedy, but that right there makes me happy. I will actually template it for later use. Let me continue to try and get this stupid corner to go where I want. And it's not gonna. Bob Ross never had these problems when he was teaching his painting crap, did he? Like, I'm trying to paint a duck. It looks like a walrus. I don't understand. He probably never painted with invisible paint either, though. Okay, I'm just gonna say that's what I meant to do right there. And then you start at the corner. And you work your way down. And you can listen to Sesame. Oops! You can listen to Sesame Street while I do that. I'm working as fast as I can because as soon as he gets bored of the Sesame Street videos he's watching, I have to stop. And I've tried to make this tutorial about, I don't know, 10 times now. My luck, I'll probably have this be corrupted and I'll have to start over. Okay, now I'm approaching where the two colors meet. And I managed to keep that corner. Yay! I've just got to get this one corner to snap to. And it probably is going to be stupid and not want to. Let me try coming back in. And sometimes you're going to work the same spot until you get like blisters, just trying to get that perfect connection. And let me show you what I would do instead. Oh, wait, first, let me get that line back. This will not work if I don't have my line perfect. And now it got distorted here, so I just paste my voxel back over. And this is sapphire, right? But I can rotate it. And now I should be able to paste this down and paint it ruby to make it match. And then I got to go back in. That did not work at all. I mean, hopefully they will just eventually give us worked textures that are, you know, red or whatever, that don't bleed. That would be like, because they said they would ages ago. But they have not. Apparently you can't wave while you're holding a selection. This guy will just have to understand. I'm not trying to be rude. But now I've pasted sapphire into the edge, so it's not going to separate out nicely. And I think I went past the edge. I just made my life harder. Anyway, so let's just do this. I have a stripe of red and a stripe of blue. So I'm just going to copy that. Oh, I didn't make it big enough. Because remember, you only need one good angle. And now you can go ahead and make your whatever you were making that so desperately needed to be two bleeding colors. And then you can copy that. Do it again out here. So I don't want to rotate it. Paste without error. So you do your inlays and your designs from the edge in. That makes your life a lot easier. And that is how you do corner. So you do diagonal lines on inlays. And before you point out that I'm doing it on a stucco so it's not going to bleed here, of course it's not. You do it where you need to make the line, and then you paste it where you want it to go. And that's the way to get something very, very precise. If you don't want it to be so clean and crisp, you just use the line tool around the edges. It'll make it bleed again in a more controlled fashion. But then again, you just use the line tool to do that. You don't need to mess with the zero volume voxels. Here's the final technique. It is way more difficult to do because you can't see what you're doing. So I will make this one dirty. First I'm going to use voxel putty, and I'm going to paint a bit of the wall obsidian. I'm doing it. Okay. You want some L? L's are yummy. I'm going to paint this wall by selecting it. This is not player made wall. I need to get wall. This is pure earth. Hasn't been messed with. Okay, haven't done anything but cut away the surface. I'm going to take a selection box, go 3N, and it needs to be 1 all around. And then I'm going to take my selection box and move it in 2. You can do it 1. You can also just do the surface, but I'm telling you to go in as far as you can because I don't want there to be a mistake. You accidentally had something in there you didn't know, and then you end up with dirty putty. This is called voxel putty. It fills the air without deforming. You've probably seen it in other videos. Make sure you paste with air. And now I've pasted something in there, and I swear it fills without deforming. I'll paste it again over here so you see. So you just went in that gap. If I'd done that with a regular voxel, this would have gotten snapped down. So anyway, this is right here going to make very tiny shapes when I paste it on itself. And it's hard to see, so you just have to get used to pasting something you can't see. So I pasted here. I'm just going to start moving my mouse around. You see I've made a rectangle, and this rectangle disappears. Let me zoom in a little so that's not in the way. From one viewing angle it's completely gone, right? So it can be used to make, let me see what size this is. It can be used to be inserted between colors, and it will make a division according to the game. It'll make a division that lets the game kind of ignore the fact that you're putting something in between them while at the same time putting something in between them. And you can get different shapes. This is another way to make the voxel tape or flattened voxel that Mythesk made. Let's see. So I need this to be a perfect square. And since it's offset, I don't particularly want that, but let's try playing with it anyway, because I have not. And I love experimenting. We'll make a square of emerald. That did not paint. I don't know what's up with that. And then amethyst. And then we'll just do that for extra fun. I'm going to come over here and take my sliver. I've been listening to people with Australian accents say it. That's how it's pronounced. It's a sliver. And we'll first predict how it's going to work. Let me rotate it up. Because it's outside of the voxel box on this side, it's going to push voxels and make them smaller if you touch this side to them. Because it's inside of the voxel box on this side, it's going to pull voxels to them. But it's voxel height on the top and on the bottom, so the game should treat it like a voxel. It should go, cool, I don't mind that you're not the right size, no problem. And you simply take this and insert it. The advantage of this method is you can see what the hell you're doing, because you can move it up and down and know where your placement is. The disadvantage is no angles. You can only make squares. If you manage to get a triangle, you could probably make angles without a problem. I just haven't tried to make one. That's my next. I'm sure somebody somewhere has one, or I can make one. In fact, I will try real quick, because there's a trick. The disadvantage of this also is when you touch it to itself, it expands. The zero volume voxel does too, but it expands to something that's invisible, so invisible plus invisible equals more invisible. So it's not such a big deal. See, that's it on a corner. And there's my triangle. But once you've put this in, you also can't put a zero volume voxel. You can put a zero volume voxel in after you put something like this in, but not before, because it'll cause these to expand as well. So that's another quick and dirty way to get no bleeding, but it won't do at an angle. And if I put anything in here now, it should expand it, because I put a bunch of that obsidian in. I'll stick a zero volume voxel in. And you see it just expanded that obsidian.